There comes a moment in every woman's life when silence becomes louder than any argument she's ever had. It's that quiet after the storm, when the good man she once had is no longer there to listen, to care, to show up. At first, it doesn't feel real. She tells herself she's fine, that she doesn't need him, that she's strong enough on her own. But then the small things start to ache: the morning coffee without a good morning, the laughter that no longer fills the space, the steady calm that once made her feel safe. When a woman loses a man who genuinely cared for her, the first and most powerful experience she faces is the emotional void that settles in quietly yet completely. It's not just about missing his presence, it's about the sudden emptiness that replaces the emotional rhythm they once shared. A good man brings a certain sense of stability, a calm that grounds her world. His kindness, attentiveness, and consistency become the unspoken language of safety she grows accustomed to. And when that disappears, the silence that follows feels like an echo of everything she took for granted. The emotional void doesn't appear all at once, it creeps in slowly, often masked by denial and self-assurance. She may tell herself that she's fine, that she doesn't need him, that she was strong before him and will be strong again. But strength feels different when it's no longer shared. The late-night conversations that once made her feel understood, the comforting gestures that spoke of genuine care, all of these memories become ghosts that visit her in quiet moments. In the space he leaves behind, she begins to reflect, often involuntarily, on what that relationship truly meant. A good man does more than love, he holds a mirror to her heart, showing her who she is when she feels valued, protected, and seen. Losing that mirror makes her question herself. Was she too proud, too distracted, too guarded to appreciate it fully? Did she mistake consistency for complacency, or patience for weakness? These questions become her new internal dialogue, looping endlessly as she replays moments in her mind, searching for answers she may never find. The emotional void transforms into a stage for introspection, where she confronts her fears, her flaws, and her desires in their rawest form. It's during this time that she realizes the difference between loneliness and solitude. Loneliness is the ache of missing him. Solitude is the awareness of herself without him. The two coexist for a while, blurring the line between pain and self-discovery. She starts to understand that what she's mourning isn't just the man, but the version of herself that existed when she felt truly loved. This understanding brings both clarity and sorrow. It reveals how deep emotional connections shape identity, and how losing them forces one to redefine what love, trust, and vulnerability mean. The emotional void left by losing a good man becomes both her wound and her teacher. It shows her the depth of her emotional capacity and the cost of taking love for granted. In that quiet space between what was and what will be, she learns that love's absence can be as transformative as its presence. After losing a good man, a woman often finds herself caught in the conflict between pride and pain, a struggle that shapes how she interprets love going forward. Pride tells her to move on, to hold her head high, to convince the world and herself that she doesn't need anyone to complete her. Pain, on the other hand, whispers the truth she tries to suppress, that she misses him, that she feels lost without the emotional safety he provided, that part of her still aches for what she had. These two forces pull her in opposite directions, creating a silent battle between appearing strong and feeling broken inside. She may put on a brave face, share laughter with friends, immerse herself in work, and act as if life continues unchanged, but underneath, there is a war of emotions she can't quite silence. Pride becomes her armor, protecting her from the vulnerability she fears will expose her pain. It makes her rewrite the story of her relationship, convincing herself that maybe he wasn't as good as she thought, or that she was right to walk away. It allows her to control the narrative when her heart feels uncontrollable. Yet, even as she tries to rewrite the ending, pain finds its way through the cracks of that armor. It arrives in the stillness of night, in familiar songs, in unguarded memories that resurface without permission. Pain reminds her of what she truly lost, not just a man, but the experience of being loved purely and consistently. This internal battle changes how she views love itself. Pride convinces her that needing someone is a weakness, while pain teaches her that love's depth is its greatest strength. She becomes more cautious, more selective, perhaps even more skeptical. The woman who once loved freely may now hesitate before opening up again, afraid that her vulnerability will lead to the same heartbreak. Her understanding of love evolves, it becomes something she respects but also fears. She begins to see that real love requires surrender, but surrender now feels dangerous. The loss reshapes her emotional compass. She no longer measures love by intensity alone but by its stability and sincerity. Through this tug-of-war between pride and pain, she starts to realize that both emotions serve a purpose. Pride helps her rebuild her self-worth, while pain reminds her of her capacity to love deeply. Together, they push her toward emotional maturity, teaching her that strength isn't about hiding heartbreak, it's about acknowledging it, learning from it, and eventually finding the courage to love again, but this time with a wiser heart. When a woman loses a good man, there comes a moment of awakening that reshapes her understanding of love and herself. In the aftermath of the loss, after the anger fades and the denial quiets, she begins to see things that were once blurred by emotion. The chaos of heartbreak turns into clarity, and in that clarity, she begins to recognize the true value of what she had. A good man's presence often provides a reflection of stability, emotional safety, and honesty that she might not have fully comprehended when it was hers. But once it's gone, she begins to see with painful precision how rare those qualities were. The late-night arguments she thought were controlling now reveal themselves as concern. The small gestures she dismissed as ordinary now appear as evidence of genuine love. Through loss, her awareness deepens, and she begins to understand that love is not about perfection, but presence, about someone who stays, listens, and cares even when it's hard. This realization doesn't come easily. It is born from nights of questioning and days of reflection. She begins to notice patterns: how she responded to love, how she handled conflict, how she received kindness. The absence of a good man forces her to look inward, to analyze her own behavior not through guilt, but through growth. It's in this introspection that she becomes aware of how she may have taken certain things for granted: his patience, his steadiness, his quiet acts of love that never sought recognition. She starts to see that emotional maturity isn't about being independent to the point of isolation, but about being able to coexist with vulnerability and gratitude. Through this awakening, she learns what true partnership meant: the unspoken understanding, the trust built over time, the emotional consistency that held everything together. Losing it reveals the depth of what she once had, and it changes how she perceives connection going forward. She becomes more aware of the difference between attention and affection, between temporary excitement and lasting care. Where once she may have valued the thrill of passion, she now values the quiet peace that comes from being with someone who chooses her every day. This new awareness doesn't erase the pain, but it gives it purpose. She begins to understand that love, in its truest form, isn't something you find easily, and when you do, it requires presence, appreciation, and understanding. The loss of a good man becomes the lens through which she finally sees what real love looks like, not through longing, but through learned wisdom that will forever shape how she gives and receives love. In the wake of losing a good man, a woman often experiences a transformation that begins quietly but unfolds profoundly over time. At first, the heartbreak feels like destruction, the dismantling of routines, the shattering of expectations, the collapse of emotional safety. But slowly, from the fragments of that pain, something begins to shift. Heartbreak, as unbearable as it feels, becomes a catalyst for rebirth. The pain that once consumed her starts to awaken a deeper awareness within her. She begins to question not just what went wrong, but who she is now without him. The woman who once defined herself through the relationship starts to rediscover the version of herself that existed before it, and the one she is meant to become after it. At first, she might resist this transformation. She might cling to memories, replay conversations, or dwell on the idea of what could have been. But as time moves forward, pain begins to lose its sharpness and transforms into perspective. The tears that once felt endless start to make sense. They become symbols of her capacity to feel deeply, to care, to connect. This realization doesn't erase the sadness, but it shifts its meaning. What was once a symbol of loss becomes a symbol of growth. The process of heartbreak slowly teaches her to let go, not because she has stopped loving, but because she has started understanding that some losses are meant to lead her back to herself. Transformation after heartbreak doesn't happen in dramatic moments, it unfolds in subtle acts of self-restoration. She starts doing things she once neglected: reading again, dreaming again, choosing herself again. The same heart that was once heavy begins to beat with purpose. She becomes more self-aware, more grounded, and more intentional about what she allows into her life. She learns that she doesn't have to be defined by who left, but by who she became after they did. The loss that once felt like an ending starts to feel like an initiation, a painful, necessary shedding of the old to make space for a wiser, stronger version of herself. Through this transformation, she learns that love doesn't end when someone leaves. Love evolves. It becomes self-respect, boundaries, and clarity. The heartbreak that once broke her open now becomes her awakening. It teaches her that even when something good ends, it can leave behind something even more powerful, the rebirth of her identity, her strength, and her understanding of what it truly means to love and be loved. When a woman loses a good man, the lesson that lingers the longest is not just about love, it's about self-recognition. She comes to understand that such a loss changes her permanently, shaping how she perceives herself and how she approaches relationships thereafter. In the beginning, the pain feels personal, almost unfair. She replays every detail of what happened, wondering why something so meaningful slipped away. But as the emotional dust begins to settle, she realizes that this loss carries a deeper message. It teaches her the true cost of love, the importance of awareness, and the necessity of appreciation. The experience becomes a mirror reflecting not just what she lost, but what she learned about herself in the process. The absence of a good man forces her to see the patterns she once overlooked. She begins to understand how easily love can be taken for granted when it feels secure. The way he listened, the patience he showed, the forgiveness he offered, these gestures that once seemed ordinary now reveal themselves as extraordinary. She learns that consistency, empathy, and trust are not guarantees but gifts. This awareness alters her standards forever. She will never again confuse attention with affection or mistake temporary passion for true care. She starts valuing emotional presence over promises, depth over drama, and truth over temporary comfort. This transformation also changes how she views herself. The pain, though harsh, refines her. It strips away illusions and leaves behind strength. She becomes more protective of her energy, more aware of what she deserves, and more careful about what she gives. The heartbreak teaches her boundaries not as walls, but as gates that allow in only those who bring peace, not chaos. She begins to understand that love is not about possession but partnership, not about being completed but being complemented. The woman who once sought validation from someone else now seeks alignment within herself. Losing a good man imprints a permanent awareness in her heart. She carries forward the lessons learned, the need to nurture, to listen, to express gratitude, to communicate before it's too late. It changes how she loves, but it also changes how she lives. She becomes both softer and stronger, more cautious yet more compassionate. And though she may still carry the ache of what was lost, she also carries a deeper sense of wisdom, the kind that can only come from having loved something real and having learned, through loss, the immense value of keeping love when it's found.